morning, Chelsea and Nicole. Thanks for joining me again to talk about this month's snapshot about housing statistics for the month of June in our Twin Cities region. I'm Jennifer Kovacic. I'm the Communications Director here at SPAR, and I'm with Chelsea Erickson and Nicole Hayden, who are both realtors and also members of SPAR's Communications Committee, and we are here to talk beyond the stats. It's hard to believe that it's already midsummer, and I'm just kind of curious, how's your summer going?
Summer's great. On a personal note, lots of things are in bloom. Lots of flowers that I planted are coming out. Lots of weeds as well, but a good amount of flowers. I think a highlight I have for my business this summer is I had the opportunity to support my next door neighbors with selling their house, which was pretty exciting to work with somebody so close. Physically, I only had to go next door to help every time I got a question, but then it was just nice to support people I knew. So that's been a highlight.
Excellent. And I bet you can talk really specifically about the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Yep. Talk up the neighbors. They're really great next door. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my summer, just this last weekend, we had an exciting time. The boat races were in town in Forest Lake. So I would definitely mark that up as a highlight for myself this summer. They've been coming, I think this was their 13th year. And this was probably the first year that we've actually made time to actually sit and enjoy them. So It's always been from afar because, I tend to work a lot. Speaking of work, a lot of great things happening in the marketplace, and much like Nicole mentioned, everything's in full bloom. So the homes, staging homes, the exterior of homes look really nice this time of year with the flowers in full bloom, the gardens, and people are just setting up their outdoor space really, really nice, and the weather's been great. So that gets me excited.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, anecdotally, I guess I'll just share that we got new neighbors in the summer of 2022. Didn't see them basically all year and kind of wondered who these new neighbors were. And this spring, they emerged with a newborn.
Oh.
So they were kind of hunkering down, and they also have a 2-year-old. So this summer, we have been working with our neighbors with some branch removal and helping them get ready to put in a swing set. So
how fun.
Kind of fun summer in our neighborhood a little bit too.
We all come out of hibernation and see our neighbors more this time of year. I feel like winter, we take a bit of a break. So
right?
Or we're too bundled up to see anybody.
Exactly.
Exactly. But fun to see a new little neighbor of ours.
Yes.
So before we get into the numbers as provided by Showing Time, what is the pulse in today's market from your vantage point?
I have been feeling that the business and the activity has been really, for lack of a better word, busy, right? There's a lot of activity happening. When I drilled down on my personal numbers at about the end of quarter 2, I realized that quarter 1 was pretty slow. Quarter 2 is off the charts, and then so it would just be nice to see it all blend together. Can I do that? This roller coaster ride. But I think people were really taking a pause from last year and into the first quarter of this year. But now that we're into quarter 3, I feel like it's a very healthy real estate market. Sellers are getting good prices. Buyers are not afraid to get out there and buy a house.
Mm-hmm. Good.
How about you?
Yeah, very similar to Chelsea. My first quarter of the year was quite slow. I think people were having pretty strong initial reactions to some of the interest rate changes, on top of that already being seasonally kind of a slower time. So I think that just kind of accelerated that. June was very, very busy for me, and July is looking to be the same way. So yes, it would be nice if we could make that a little bit more even, but I'm just not sure that our industry ever is even. I think it's always going to have those ebbs and flows. But I know we're going to talk more about kind of locally and nationally what those statistics look like. I think we're starting to see that settling in from the initial reactions with some of the interest rates.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the pause or the kind of freakish nature of the high fluctuations that happened so suddenly caused people to just really step back. And I think that that trauma, if you will, is gone. I think goals are going over, stepping over the trauma, or that's faded to the point where people are not allowing that to get them all excited anymore. They're laser focused on their goals, and they're going to make them happen regardless of the interest rate.
Yep.
Nice. Well, with that, let's jump into some numbers, and I'll get back and ask you a couple other anecdotal questions as we go. After a slight dip in the months of April and May, the median home prices increased a little in June 2023 by 0.5% up to $382,000. Sellers continued to accept offers over list price despite a decline in sales, reflected by the lack of supply coupled with rising mortgage rates. Market times are reflecting a relatively fast-paced market with half the sales under contract in less than 12 days. Last month, in June, sellers brought 16.5% fewer new listings for a total of 6,664 to the market than last year, and less inventory remains today, as you've both noted. As we know, market activity varies by area, price point, and property type. To give a quick recent overview, new home sales rose 24.3%, while existing home sales were down 12.8%. Single-family sales fell 13.7%, condo sales declined 3.2%, and townhome sales were up 0.8%. And that said, I know that you're still seeing a lot of activity with your clients, and I know it ebbs and flows a little bit, but how does this look, and how does this compare? How does what you're seeing compare with these statistics I'm sharing?
So I'll share a recent experience just last week. I have buyers that are looking in kind of a wider net of the Twin Cities area. We actually looked at 2 homes on the same street, exact same price, $280,000, which is on the lower end of where I would say our first-time home buyers are falling, so pretty competitive price point. One of the homes had a finished basement, so more finished square footage, a little bit more updates, I would say. That home had 80 showings in 2 days.
Wow.
And 17 offers they ended up with. The second home that we looked at, the basement had a sump pump and drain tile. Wasn't finished. I would make the argument a little bit better condition, actually. And they only ended up with 1 offer over the weekend and didn't have very much. So I think that's reflective of the competitive nature of the inventory challenge, but I think that's also an indicator of what our buyers are looking for. People got really excited by more square footage, more finished space than they did about a home that was a little bit more dated, was still well kept, but just didn't have as much square footage space that was ready to go. I think that one presented an opportunity to grow equity for a lot of first-time home buyers, but a lot of folks are wanting that finished stuff out the gate. But in terms of what you were talking about, with less listings, we're definitely feeling that when you're out with buyers, and even when you're representing sellers, seeing how quickly things are picking up activity.
Sure. Well, and you talk a little bit about the motivations of buyers. What are you seeing as the motivations of sellers right now?
Well, I can speak to, a lot of the sellers I'm working with are either being relocated or they're downsizing. So if a seller has a goal to downsize, it doesn't matter what market it is. They're buying, they're selling, and then they're buying, right? They're getting that smaller. Although we can joke that some of them say, that they can just live in their RV for the summer, but then they better find a place by November because that's when it gets cold, right? Yeah. They think they got that flexibility, but in all reality, when someone has a goal to achieve, they're going to make it happen. And that's kind of a lot. Well, and then unfortunately, the life cycle ends for some people, and then we have that inventory as well. I actually have a home right now that's been sold with the largest number of sellers I've ever worked with, and there's 8 sellers on this home because when the family member passed, the title was transferred by a transfer on death deed to all the heirs, which is kind of amazing. Mm-hmm. And we're just thankful that they're all age 18 and over because that could have presented a whole nother problem. Mm-hmm. So Does that answer the question? I could go down some deep roads of some fun things that we're encountering these days, but
I think you bring up a great point, though, Chelsea. That's been my experience. My neighbor who sold, they were downsizing and actually relocating to Florida from Minnesota. My sellers right now are 8 children of a parent who passed, and one of my buyers purchased a home from 5 sellers from a parent who passed. So I think a lot of folks that we're seeing selling right now, their motivation is big life changes or transitioning from, like full home owner, like big home to maybe downsizing or being on slab on grade or relocating. I think I'm not seeing as much right now step up buyers selling. I've not seen that as much.
Well, based on some of the statistics, I know it's not sunshine and roses for everybody right now either. And I think it's only fair to acknowledge that it is a tougher market today in some aspects. The June statistics show that pending sales have dipped 10.8% and closed sales fell 18%. Both supply and demand have come down in tandem, meaning the balance between buyer and seller activity has remained tight. In fact, inventory levels fell 13.4% in June to 7,492 active listings. And I'm curious, and I know you've shared a little in stories, so I'm guessing the answer is yes, but are you feeling this in your business, and how are you feeling it? What is it looking like?
Yeah, I would say July compared to June is a little lighter, so I would say I'm feeling that. And just in general conversations with my sphere and my network, I'm hearing more and more from current owners that maybe their life is calling them to have bigger home goals or change locations, but they might not be in the shock phase of the interest rate, but they're really starting to look more critically at what their budget can afford them. And so they might be just taking a little bit more time to make that decision. So I think people are being more thoughtful in that regard.
You mentioned the interest rates, and I know we touched on that a little bit earlier. I read a stat not that long ago, and I think it's still true today, is that we have over 27% of buyers are buying with cash. So that style of financing, if you will, is not affected by our interest rates. There is a lot of cash in the marketplace and at all levels of selling. So I just think that just people will continue to move. If they need to move, they're going to make it happen. And is that cash in the bank? Are they cashing in IRAs? Are there money markets? Are they selling a bigger house and then buying a smaller house with cash? I've seen all of those scenarios in the last 90 days. So I think that's a big thing to keep in mind.
So just really different strategies for different people. Are there strategies that you guys are using that are different from previous seasons, I guess, of selling and working with clients?
I had someone reach out to me the other day on the phone and was talking about looking to find someone to help his mother transition from a big home to a smaller one-level home. And then he started talking about all this vacant land that he had, that could possibly be available for sale, and just all this information that was coming at me. I just kind of said, well, hold up. I might be able to refer you to someone that can help you with all that vacant land you have. My niche would be to help your mom, I really niche myself in helping people transition between property A to property B, because I think there's a lot that you need to keep doing on both sides of the pendulum, because when you're prepping your home for sale, you can sell it as is, or like Nicole said, people are more apt to choose that home that's fixed up, spiffied up, and they're going to pay more for that. So why not come along with that home seller and give them some good advice and some support on how to make that home more presentable and ultimately be a better return on value for them, and then help them make that transition to the next home that's more right-sized for their lifestyle. So I really enjoy doing that, and in that process, while we're working on the prepping for the home that's going to be coming to market, we're also dipping our toes in what what does the future hold for them, right? So we keep them motivated by looking at what could be, not where they're at, but what is the potential for the new space. So it's kind of a whole circuit, a whole process, but that's really what I think keeps sellers motivated, and because they're buyers as well, and helping them transition from investment A to investment B, and hopefully putting them in a better financial position as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't add too much on there just because I think you and I have similar niches. I do, as part of my selling, I do provide staging, and I work with a staging consultant. So that's just an area where I have spent more time, energy, and investment financially in my business, because I'm also out there with buyers, and I know how much value they put on a home that is freshly painted, freshly done floors, has a room that's staged in such a way that they can picture themselves there. I see the really quick difference between a buyer walking in and being able to start imagining life there, and when they walk into a home that is very much somebody else's current home. So that's something I prioritize with my sellers, and I've just, in my business, been spending more time in that area because it sells homes faster and for higher dollar, which is of value for sellers, especially if they're making that transition to their next step in life. Often that can be the difference maker between being able to buy their next home in cash or having to finance it.
Absolutely. Well, you both have touched on this a little bit, but in case there's more you want to add, I'm curious, is there anything that you do, or how do you keep your clients inspired, especially when you're in a market right now where there is a little bit less inventory? And it sounds like both of you are encouraging your clients to be thought-provoking and really kind of cast the net in terms of their hopes and dreams and realities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what I would share for both sellers and buyers, I would say right now buyers is maybe a little bit more important because we might need to be reminded of that. I take a lot of time at the beginning to ask them specifically about their goals, not just what are the components of the house, but what are you hoping your life to look like in home ownership or new home ownership? And making sure that I keep track of that and I'm reminding them. So if we have a situation where we looked at a house that we really liked that had 80 showings and 17 other offers and ours wasn't selected, when we have that kind of defeated attitude, like remember at the end of the day, we were hoping to be able to host family get-togethers. When your kid has a graduation party, you want to be able to host that at your home, and just keeping that real and tangible for folks. So just being really clear on what their goals are and reminding them.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, because moving is a lot of work. It's not an event. It's a process.
Yes.
So being side by side with those clients throughout the entire process, and they know they have you as an advocate to help them when it comes to making some strong decisions and reminding them of their goals, just like Nicole said. And that's absolutely
Perfect.
important.
Well, I have a little twist of a question for you. I was at a recent real estate conference, and one of the speakers talked a lot about inspiration and put it out to us as attendees about inspiration and what inspires us. So I'm curious to know, in my twist here, what are some ways that your clients, either who you're currently working with or prospective clients, might inspire you?
Well, I'm very much a goal setter and very goal focused. So I do get inspired. I feed off the energy of my clients. And so, I get excited when they're excited. And much like Nicole said, reminding them of their overall goals. And when we get that achieved, I'm like a record. I'm repeating, this is what we did, this is what we did. So I think just much like Nicole said, keeping that focus and keeping that process. Why are we doing this?
Sure.
What's the game plan here? Because again, it's a process. It's not an overnight success.
It's not. No, it takes some hard work. Yeah, I'm so on a personal note, I was the first person in my family to buy a house. So I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for folks who are first-time home buyers. I do community ed teaching for that population specifically. So I just recently helped a couple that bought their first home. And it wasn't a straightforward path. It took us a few attempts to get the home. And then we got it, and it was in their ideal neighborhood. And now I'm getting text messages of their 2 dogs getting to run around in a fenced backyard for the first time they've had them, or all this work that they're putting to transform the kitchen and actually many rooms in the house, because he's an electrician by trade and really handy. So I get really inspired by folks that worked really, really hard to be able to attain home ownership, and then are really proud of it and really excited and want to share in that. So I just think that's a real special way that we get to be a part of people's lives.
I love that. I love both your answers. That's great. Question I have for both of you, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we got on the microphones here, but are you finding differences with repeat buyers versus first-time buyers? And if so, like, what are these differences that you're seeing and experiencing?
Yeah, I think repeat buyers, I'm noticing a little just more of that conscious to the interest rate. Obviously, if you're in a cash position, that's not going to impact you. But I think some people, if they refinance their current home down to a lower interest rate and then comparing to what maybe they would have for a payment right now, it's a little bit of a harder pill to swallow. Whereas first-time home buyers are entering a market not having that previous mortgage experience, and quite frankly, they're often walking in with really expensive rental monthly amount. So they're still in a position where often their mortgage can be cheaper than what their current rent is, and then they get the opportunity to build their equity. So I think just a different urgency, maybe a different excitement level, whereas maybe folks who are current homeowners might be waiting a little bit longer or taking it at a slower pace.
Well, and I've seen in my business that there have been, I think, 3 different homeowners that have sold and have chosen to rent while they wait to find their new home. And this process has taken, 6, 12, 18 months. So are they now considered first-time home buyers again? No, but they are paying rent, and they're looking at that cost savings analysis. But the reason they choose to do that as well is because they're not just going to settle for any house, right? They have a goal, what that next house looks like, and so they're being patient and waiting for that to come along. So when it does come along, then they can slap down a really amazing offer, oftentimes with cash, because they've already got their cash in the bank from the sale of their home. So I think it's a different mentality,
Yeah, absolutely.
Both creative, but different.
Both creative. It just goes to show there's lots of different kind of buyers out there, and definitely lots of different types of sellers as well, and the motivations for sure. As we've discussed before, and when I say before in previous podcasts, as we've done this monthly now for a little bit, a balanced market is achieved with 4 to 6 months of supply. The current month's supply of inventory is up 17.6%. Nationally, housing starts were up 21.7% month over month as of last measure, the fastest pace in more than a year, while housing permits increased 5.2% month over month, and this is according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Another national figure that I thought might be interesting just to share is that according to the National Association of Home Builders and Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, the renewed interest in new homes this year has helped builder confidence increase to its highest level since July of 2022. And I guess one thing I would like to also just add is, that's looking at national. So I don't know if you want to comment on that more locally. You're welcome to if you have any thoughts on some of the home building and...
I see a lot of the larger national builders putting up a lot of homes, and I just had a parking lot conversation with a local builder the other day, and he said business is down, business is slow. the cost of building is just really high, and it makes it hard for entry-level buyers or even move-up buyers at a price point to build exactly what they're looking for. And I've always been a big proponent for resale because I know it's a better value. But building is for those that definitely want something specific and plan to be there for a good long time. So national versus local, what do you think, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would love to see more of that building going after the market of folks who are going to be able to supply an existing home through downsizing. I'd love to see more effort be put in from our builders for like slab on grade. Those are very popular, and they go like hotcakes when you see them come on the market. But yeah, I think it's the price point for building is not a very accessible for newcomers in the market. Not a lot of new folks are buying a brand new house. That's definitely a step up. We need lots more supply, so I'd love to see us just get a little bit more creative on how we're going after that. I really like the mixed-use developments too.
Sure.
I see a lot of that closer to the cities. I'd love to see more of that expand into the further out suburbs where you have businesses, perhaps like condo or townhouse, and then single family. So you're kind of catching all of those needs in one area.
A little bit of something for everybody,
Yeah.
including that affordable housing option.
And it makes it so people aren't having to commute as far. So I would imagine that's probably up and coming, but I'd love to see that expand more.
Well, interesting to hear what you both have to share.
Speaking from a national and national builder level too, I also wanted to point out there are some of those new construction home builders offering financing incentives, like lower interest rates, paying for the buyer's closing costs. This is something that they are offering to try and encourage sales as well. So
I'm glad you bring that up too, because I know SPAR has been working with a lot of different groups to talk about what some different options that are out there for people who are looking at purchasing a home. And, go on to spar.com because you can see some of the conversations, some of the options, some of the discussions. So a great place. Thanks for bringing that up. And, just anecdotally, I definitely find myself interested in seeing the homes for sale versus the new builds for sale and just kind of where the sold signs are going up. Kind of interesting to see. So I want to end with just a fun question for you. We were talking about this a little bit before we got started. And when it comes to working with homes, it's July. What are some fun summer trends that you might be seeing right now?
fun summer trends, huh? Wow. Anytime I'm meeting with a home seller before July, honestly, I tell them that if history is going to repeat itself, July is going to be a slow month. And why is that? Because people are typically vacationing in July. Families are doing their stuff for the summer. And, history may repeat itself. I think it is, but I just put a house on the market on Wednesday right after the 4th, and it's already gone. So who knows? I always joke about my crystal ball being broken as well. So with that being said, that's what, in my business, I've always believed about July being a little slower on the sales side, just because people are vacationing and doing their faraway things, enjoying the water, enjoying the warmth. How about you, Nicole?
I do have a buyer that has taken like 3 out of the last 4 weekends off for travel, so that runs true. In terms of fun summer trends, I'm thinking about the house that I have that's going on the market. Everything's in bloom, so we are just going color, inside and out. I think homes that have outdoor spaces that are very inviting. I'm thinking about patio sets and chairs and some of those. I just saw a house come on the market that had some beautiful nighttime photos with the lights in the back. I think that's what everybody who is actually sticking around to maybe look at houses because they're super motivated, they want to see a house that's ready for them to enjoy the second half of the summer. And so I think I just love that, because in winter it can be a grueling time to sell.
So take lots
to
of
see a
photos.
house. Yes, exactly. Take photos now. That's something that I recommend for folks who are considering selling in the spring. This is a great time to take photos and showcase what your house looks like in the summertime. And just, you can show houses until 8 o'clock at night and it's still daylight and you can see all parts of the house. So from a working standpoint, you can get a few more in before it's dark, which is nice.
Nice. Well, and as we've talked about, and I think everything reflects, homeownership still continues to be one of the best ways to grow that generational wealth. Mm-hmm. And,
Absolutely.
You can't go wrong with that. Is there any last minute thoughts either one of you have or anything you want to add before we close this podcast session?
Well, I'm good.
Well, good. How about you, Nicole?
I think maybe one thing I would throw out to our peers, like Chelsea and I have both been talking about, I think folks are starting to not freak out about the interest rates as much right now. So how do we continue to encourage folks, whether it be a parking lot conversation or in the grocery store, to just give some more confidence in the real estate market? I think now is our opportunity to do that. So take full advantage of that at the barbecues, the grad parties, all the things that you're doing when folks ask you how the market is. I think as industry professionals, it's our opportunity to help people feel more confident.
Absolutely. Showcase that value of a realtor.
Yep.
That's right. And there were some numbers out there reflecting Q3 was supposed to be really advantageous when it comes to a decline in interest rates. So I keep holding that true and spreading the good word about that as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Well, good. Well, time will tell. Let's hope.
Time will tell.
Thank you both, Chelsea and Nicole. Always great to have you guys be a part of the Beyond the Stats podcast.
Thanks,
Thank
Jennifer.
you, Jennifer.